So I'm watching a bit of an interesting Twitter feud going on as we speak, Sunday morning. Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy fame has just recently put out the third video in his series on the hard problem of human consciousness. Now, I gave it a brief watch over, but I was distracted. I was doing other things while I had it on. So I got to re-watch it before I make a full analysis of it. But this little feud is interesting, and it looks like it's going to head towards productive territory for we the theists. So Michael Jones tweets, reading comments from physicalists on my newest video really makes me more confident physicalism is false. Now, I don't know how you hear that, but I read that as just a roundabout way of saying, you know, boy, these comments are stupid. I don't read that as any type of claim about, you know, Matt Dillahunty totally reads it differently than me. He then takes issue with him. That doesn't seem any more sound than concluding that Christianity is false because of comments from Christians. Your confidence metrics is unsound. Seems to me like he's taking that tweet far too literally. And it struck me as really strange. And I tweeted there. I involved myself in the Twitter feud. I said, you know, I think it's just around them. Inspiring Philosophy replies, you must be trying hard to interpret what I said in the least charitable way. Nowhere did I say or imply the mere comments from physicalists means physicalism is false. I'm obviously referring to the lack of sound arguments in their comments, which merely adjust my confidence. I'm sorry, I guess this is Matt now. I guess I just don't understand English. Reading comments from physicalists on my newest video really makes me more confident physicalism is false. Seemed like a pretty clear statement that your confidence that physicalism is false was boosted by reading comments. Now, there's a whole back and forth between them. Again, I commented, what did you say, Craig? I know you want to know what I said. I took it as more a roundabout way of saying their comments are stupid, they got nothing. Not quite so literally as Matt Dillahunty took it. I think that's pretty obvious. When Michael Jones, you know, he kind of got a little persnickety in response, he probably should have just downplayed it, said basically all I'm saying is they got nothing. They got nothing to offer, their comments are stupid. I don't think he was literally saying it's supporting evidence in favor of my position that their arguments are so bad. That's what Matt Dillahunty thinks he's literally saying. Like I said, he's taking the tweet far too literally. Think of it as Matt Dillahunty. I could easily see him tweeting something like this, like, you know, I used to not believe in the resurrection. Now I've seen all the arguments from Christian apologists, and I really don't believe in the resurrection. That's exactly what his tweet means, and I think Matt Dillahunty is capable of understanding that. So why is he getting persnickety? Well, my guess is atheists are weird people. I'm pretty sure that he either watched the video or is aware of the arguments that Michael Jones is making. That's my guess. Because why he would take issue with that tweet that's basically just saying, wow, the physicalists are making stupid arguments, is because there's some defensiveness there. That's my own, this is an educated guess, but that's the only reason I can see why he would even take issue with that. Something that I see atheists say comments like that every single solitary day on Twitter, and I ignore them almost routinely. I see 50 of those a day from atheists, those type of comments. You know, again, like I said, I really thought there wasn't a resurrection until I heard the Christian apologists talk about it. Now I'm sure there isn't a resurrection. That's kind of what's going on. Now, why would he bother to interject on something like that? Because I think he knows. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Here's why I'm making a video. So we'll keep a heads up. Because this feud turned into a little persnickety back and forth between them. And Matt Dillahunty's now going to make a response video. Keep your eye on that video. He said it's coming out tomorrow. Why? Because something that I've been talking about in my videos on this particular topic is really key and really important. The reason why I watch Michael Jones's, always watch his videos on this subject. I watched all three of those in the series. I'm going to rewatch the other one so that I thoroughly digest it. You know, he puts out stuff on like Eden and Noah's Ark and things like that, and a lot of times I don't watch them. I always watch these ones, and I always watch his digital physics arguments, and I watch them a few times over. Why? Because the atheist, not necessarily the atheist, because there are plenty of atheists on my side of this argument. A lot. They're called intelligent atheists who have read the literature and understand what they're talking about. They are not physicalists. They understand that there are implications. The physicalists, most physicalists are arguing, and a lot of them don't even understand their position because they are arguing for the position. They have no idea what they're talking about. I swear to God, I watched Skylar Fiction's analysis of Eric Hernandez versus Aaron Ra, and I also watched Pine Creek Doug's analysis of the same debate. Then you go look at the comments, and I watched some of the live chats. It's like, wow, God, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. These comments are idiotic. They don't even understand Eric Hernandez's arguments. I could, even include in that to some degree Pine Creek and Skylar himself. Didn't seem to me like either of them understood the positions either. If you are a physicalist, if you are an atheist that does not recognize that there is such a thing as a hard problem of human consciousness, again, not according to Craig Reed, according to science. And what is that problem? That the physical substance of your brain seems to produce conclusively something known as consciousness that seems to have a life of its own. That once it is produced, is its own entity, does not require the chemicals of the brain, and matter of fact, can start to influence the chemicals of the brain. That's case closed fact. It's called neuroplasticity. Your human consciousness, once produced, can actually alter your brain chemistry. Now that is by definition miraculous, or at least seemingly miraculous. What it is almost inarguably is that material substance, your brain matter, has produced something immaterial. There's a bunch of atheists who will agree with just that statement. Why? Because it seems obviously so. That's not established fact, as I've argued in my past videos. Look for the day not too far from now, maybe a year, 2 years from now, when it is established fact. Why? Because it seems almost inconclusive. That's why watch Matt's video tomorrow. Why? Because he's one of the strongest people in their squad. And I sincerely doubt that he is going to have anything to offer. Because there doesn't seem to be any good counter-argument. Most of the counter-arguments from the physicalists fall under the banner of, if you damage the brain, you damage the personality, you damage the consciousness. Okay, no non-dualist is arguing now or will ever argue that the brain and the consciousness are in relationship to each other. That consciousness is contingent on the proper functioning of the brain. Nobody would ever argue anything other than that. Why? Because that would be ridiculous. Now, this is where you see Eric Hernandez has a bunch of analogies about that. And not a single person who was watching that video with Skylar Fiction or Pine Creek, you look at the comments, they don't seem to understand his analogies at all. They go, wow, he's so dumb. He's got an analogy about a guitar. Granted, not the best analogy to prove the point. But the music being played by the guitar is different than the guitar. It's not the same thing. It is producing something that is completely and utterly different from the guitar itself. But if you damage the guitar, you break the strings, you can't play the music. That's the point of his analogy. And, atheists have a field day with it. Oh, I can't believe you damaged the guitar, you can't play C, duh. That's the point. I swear to God, the better analogy I heard from Braxton Hunter, I've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. It's a better analogy. You have a radio. You turn on your radio. What is coming out of the broadcast? It's a station. FM music is playing. There's some rock and roll music playing. That is not the same thing as the inner mechanics of the radio. Everybody understands that clearly. Correct? Correct. It's a totally different thing. Even coming from a different place. But it requires the proper functioning of the radio. If you smash the radio, you can't hear the music. Duh! Just like if you damage your brain, you can't have the consciousness functioning properly. It is contingent on the brain functioning properly. That does not now mean, nor will it ever mean, that they are the same thing. That they are one and the same material substance. That's the point. The physical is actually arguing that they are. And it's an absurd argument. And most of the people in Skylar Fiction's comments didn't even understand that that's what they are arguing for. They don't even understand Eric Hernandez's arguments, step one of his arguments. Swear to God, ask any of them to summarize it, they'll have no idea what he meant. None. And here they are calling him all manner of stupid, all different ways. Oh, he's so stupid. If you break a guitar, you don't get a C note. Duh, Eric, that's his point. Duh, you. I swear to God, it was mind-boggling to read. I'm like, wow, you morons don't even understand his argument. And here you are, like, calling him dumb. I swear to God, go look at both of them. The Pine Creek analysis and the Pine Creek audience a little bit higher brow, but they're just as dense. They're just as dense, and I almost promise you, almost to a man, they don't understand what Eric Hernandez is talking about. Which is pathetic, because it's not all that complicated. They're just not listening. They go, oh, Christian dumb, therefore he's saying dumb things, therefore I don't have to pay attention or understand. And they don't. One guy makes the analogy of like, that's like saying my YouTube channel, there's a YouTube channel that plays, and it's different from the internet. I'm like, yeah, dumbass, it is. It's a perfect example that underscores his point. Matter of fact, a better analogy than the guitar or the radio. I have a laptop. I am producing a video right now from my laptop. Is it the same thing as my laptop? No. Is the video I'm producing contingent on the proper functioning of my laptop? Yes. That's all Eric Hernandez is arguing with his analogies. If you damage my laptop right now, can I make this video? No. Duh. Duh. It's what people are arguing who are physicalists. That they're not separate things. Why? Because if you damage the brain, you damage the consciousness, you damage the personality of the person. Yeah, well, duh. Nobody's not arguing that the brain, that consciousness is not contingent on proper brain functioning or contingent on the material substance of the brain. We're just saying that once it's produced, it takes on a life of its own and now becomes a separate, immaterial entity. As far as I'm concerned, this is established fact. This is inarguably true. So I cannot wait to see Matt Dillahunty's video. Why? Because I don't see how you could counter this. I really don't. Atheists just going to have to give up the ghost on this one. That's why Scott Clifton had a tweet out yesterday that I applauded. Why? Because he basically acknowledged what I just said in the first part of his tweet. Then he went on to say something in the second part of the tweet that I didn't understand. Something about theists have to acknowledge, I don't know. The reason why this gets confusing is even Michael Jones does this to a little bit of a degree. All of the substance dualists say that this proves a soul. It does not. If you just strip it down to we are dealing with some immaterial substance when we are talking about consciousness, all the smart atheists are going to agree with you. Why? Because they all know that's true. There's a lot of them out there and they're on that same page. Looks like Scott Clifton's going to be joining their ranks. Because it's inarguably true. Consciousness is something completely different. That's why they call it the hard problem of human consciousness. It's something completely other than your brain. And it has a life of its own. And it can actually influence the chemicals of your brain by itself. You produce something from your brain that seems to have a mind of its own and operates according to its own inner logic that has nothing to do with material at all. It can actually affect the material substance of the brain itself. It's called neuroplasticity. I promise you that's true. Look it up. All of the smart atheists, or most of the smart atheists, are on this page. The holdouts are people like Matt Dillahunty, and I don't see how he's going to hold out for very long. Now, like I said, this does not prove a soul. So I was in a conversation with one atheist who said, I'm not a physicalist. I said, if you're not, technically speaking, a physicalist, then you and I probably agree on everything. Because he's going to say it doesn't prove a soul. And I'm going to say, okay, I agree with you. It's compelling evidence in favor of some theological positions, but it's not proof. It's interesting, it's compelling information in favor of theological positions on the subject, but it's in no way is it proof of a soul. That's the problem with the substance dualists. They always try and overshoot the mark as to what there are implications to it that are theological in nature, obviously. But they're not proofs. They are small ball evidence of some type of theological interpretation of the world. Small evidence. Minuscule evidence. But what they are conclusively proof of is that consciousness itself is immaterial. It is something different. Your brain produces it, yes, and is contingent on the proper functioning of your brain, yes. But once produced, it is something completely other. And it seems to have no material substance to it whatsoever. Now, as far as I can tell, that is inescapable fact. That is a conclusion that many intelligent atheists have come to, Thomas Nagel being the most famous, but there are a lot. There are a lot. A lot of atheist philosophers understand this or are grappling with this today. The only difference is the theists go, aha, look, see? This proves theist arguments. The theist jumps to a conclusion. The atheist doesn't. But on the substance of the argument, we can all probably soon agree, even Matt Dillahunty, that your consciousness, that your brain produces something known as consciousness. The hard problem of human consciousness is that this seems inexplicable. By definition, miraculous. Why? Because it seems almost impossible, given the facts of your brain. How is it producing something that has its own life of its own? And there's a really good analogy in the third video on the Chinese, the guy in the box who you give him. See, the reason why people are arguing that computers will eventually get there if you make them complex enough. Now, there's a great part of his video, the third video, about the guy who you give the Chinese figures to, the Chinese characters to. You put him in a box, you hand him Chinese characters, you teach him the logical consistency so he knows how to match up. This is exactly how computer programming works, by the way. Computers don't understand anything. They just understand the formal logic, so they can freak show Christians out there like, no, I got a different explanation. I don't know, there always is. It's always a freak show Christian who's got some other interpretation. But it doesn't prove it's so. So, anyways, look for that video tomorrow. I think this is fun, kids. I don't see how this can be anything other than a good, healthy, productive back and forth between these two that will hopefully lead to another debate. And this would be a great thing. A great thing for Matt Dillahunty to debate inspiring philosophy on. So, if you're on my side of this, you want to see some real go-get-em philosophy major type action, try and get that to happen. Because that would be great. I'm going to be looking for that video tomorrow. I strongly suggest you look for that video tomorrow. Atheists who are physicalists, get ready to be rebutted. Get ready to give up your position. Why? Because it is untenable. It is not so. That's why. So, there you have it, kids. Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.